This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so we started understanding about the basics of the Apex programming language. Okay, so first thing what we need to know, so Apex is case insensitive, meaning even though there's a difference in the capitalization, system treat both as same. And we are understanding the types of different types of statements we can write in a program, so that once we understand, it's easy for us to write a program. So far we discussed about the memory statements. So mainly, so when we develop a program to hold the input and output data, right? So we need to allocate the memory. Okay, so based on the type of data to allocate only that much memory. So as a programmer, we decide. So as per the requirement, what is the data they need to input. So we decide what is the data type. So based on that, system allocate only that much memory. Okay, and all these memory statements, I mean, say at the time of executing the program, based on how we define in a program, system will occupy that memory. So more details we'll discuss going forward. Okay. So for now, how to write a memory statement. So for that, already we discussed. So in general, when we write a statement, when we write a program, so each and every word what we see we call as a token, right? So token means, I think someone is not in mute. So by default you can stay on mute, and if you have any questions you can unmute and ask your questions. Think Parag, yeah. Okay, so yeah, so these are the some of the statements. Then each and every word what we see we call as token technically, but there are different types of tokens. Which one we call as keyword, which one we call as identifier. Think so by default try to stay on mute. Okay, so if you have any questions you can unmute and ask your questions. Okay, so now already yesterday we discussed, right, which one we call as keyword and which one we call as identifier. Okay, so as per what we discussed yesterday, so these identifiers on day to day we call as variable, right? So we defined some variables yesterday, integer, string, and other types, and understood how those are working. Okay, so now today let's focus on these arithmetic and logical statements. So how we deal with these. So out of these, first thing, so let's understand about the assignment operator. Okay, so the purpose of the assignment operator is to assign some value into the memory what we allocate, right? So example, let's say I'm defining a variable, right, which will allocate some memory of type integer. Okay, so if you want to assign some value into this, right, this is a integer type of memory, right, into this variable. So if you want to assign some value, we is equal to, and the right side we give some value, so that that value will be assigned into that memory, right? So maybe it's not like while defining only we need to assign. So let's say that's the variable we define, and as a next statement, so I'm writing, let's say I'm assigning 100, right? So basically equal operator. So right hand side value it will try to assign into left hand side. Okay. So the thing is, always left side what we give should be one of the variable, right? But the right side can be either a variable or direct value, right? Example. So now to number 2, I also want to assign whatever the value is there in number 1, right? I can say like this, right? So already we know 100 is assigned to number 1, right? When we do like this, in this number 1, in that num1 variable, whatever the value is there, so in this case 100, that will be assigned to num2, that variable. So like that we write the logic. Okay, so we use the assignment operator. So now practically to see how exactly it is working, so once we log into Salesforce, okay, so open developer console, right? So from setup, so let's say if it is not there, click on the setup, open the developer console, click on debug, open execute anonymous window, paste here, you can execute and see. But to see really, we don't know what is happening, right? When you execute, so it generates a log. When you open the log, each and every line, what is happening, you can say num1 null, num2 null, num1 100, num2 100. But exactly, I mean, sometimes we cannot understand this log in a meaningful way. So as a developer, we can print whatever we want to understand in detail, right? So for that, so while working with the Apex programming language, so as a developer to understand how the program is working, if you want to print some specific value and understand, so what is the value it is holding, so we use debug. Okay, so we have debug statements. So for that we use system.debug. Okay, for now don't bother about so what is that system, what is that debug, we'll discuss slowly. For now just understand in the log, right? When you execute the code, system generate a log. In that log, if you want to print anything, so we print inside this system.debug and inside that. Okay, so let's say I want to print this number 1 value, right? And I also want to print number 2 value. But while printing, I want some meaningful, right? I want to print in a meaningful way so that I can easily read it and understand. So this will have 100. It will print 100. This will also will print 100. But this 100 is for which variable? So in the log to have some clarity, so what I'm doing, I'm keeping some text, right? In the code always, if you want to keep some text starting from single character to a sentence or paragraph, we have to write that inside the single quote. Okay, so here I'm saying number 1 value is like that, right? So now if you see this part is a string and this is a variable of type integer, we need to concatenate both, right? Directly like this, if we keep seeing error, syntax error, right? As per syntax, this is not correct. Okay, so when you have two values, especially two different values, so this is string type, this is number type. So to concatenate both, so we use one operator, plus operator. Okay, so now what it will do, it will concatenate that string and that value. Okay, so same concept here also I'm trying to use. So here I'll say num2 and I'm giving like that. Right now let's execute. Execute. So click on debug only. So now if you see, so num1 value is 100, num2 value is 100, like that is. I mean, the thing is, once we execute, when you open the log, to see whatever we are printing using system.debug, right? If you see, there is a checkbox, debug only. Okay, when you do that, so using system.debug, whatever we are printing, only those you see here. So that way we'll have some clarity, right? So just understand. So and also maybe for a change that number1 plus, I'm going to add one more 100 for that. So now num2 value should be 200, right? Let's execute and check. So in case if you want to clear the existing logs, right? So we click on this debug, clear logs, right? So that we can focus on whatever newly generated log, right? So execute, so log is generated, double click to opens. If you want to see only what we are printing, click on debug only. It's showing this 100 to 100. It's working, right? So this is the way how we deal with the assignment operator. Okay. So the next type of operators, arithmetic operators. Okay. So we have different flavors of arithmetic operators. Okay. So mainly for addition we use plus. For subtraction we use minus. For multiplication we use star. For division we use slash. These are the different arithmetic operators. Okay. So but while using those, so again we have different flavors: unary operator, binary operator, and ternary operator. So what is the difference? Let's understand. So let's take the example for unary operator, right? So now assume that we have some number, right? Let's say integer number1, and by default I'm keeping the value as 0. So now all I need is I want to increment that num1 value by 1. Every time whenever one statement executes, I want to increment the value by 1, right? So in general, right? So again, let me keep here, right? Num1 we have 0. In general, if you want to add 1 to that, so what we do? So num into that variable. So whatever existing value num1, right? So here, if you refer this, so existing value is 0, 0 plus 1. So that means what will happen when this is executed? So whatever the number is there, on top of that, it will add 1, right? So let's see how it is working. System dot debug. I'll say num1 value, something like that. So I'm printing that, right? And also when you execute automatically, if you want to open the log, you can check this checkbox. Okay, so it executes and open the log automatically. Click on this debug only. Now you are seeing num1 value, so 1, right? So in case here if I have 10, right? Now it should be 11. It is incrementing that value by 1, right? So the thing is, this is an example of binary operator, right? Binary means so one operator, two different values, right? So it will apply some calculation and this result will become one value. Okay, so but same thing how we can write. Okay, so all we need to do is increment that number by 1. So we can use like this. Okay, so whatever the variable we have, and after that if you use 2 plus plus like that, and no need to assign anything. Okay, so what will happen after this statement? Okay, it will increment that value by 1. And now also if you execute, so we'll see the same result 11, right? Let's execute, click on debug only, same result we are seeing. So now this we call as unary operator, meaning so one value and one operator, right? So these are some examples of the unary operators. Okay, so in the same way you can also use minus minus, right? Like this also you can. Okay, now what will happen? It will decrement that value by 1. Okay, so let's execute. Now we need to see that value as 9, right? Execute, and if you see value is 9, like that. Either we use plus plus or minus minus. Okay, just understand. In the same way, maybe I'm showing all the examples, right? I don't want to, for our reference, I want to keep this. So when you write the code, if you want to comment, right? Comment means it should not, system should not consider that line. While executing, it will skip that line, right? So we use a slash slash, right? So slash slash means it's going to comment, means you can type whatever you want. System is not going to execute that line, right? That is just for some information purpose. As a developer we keep. Okay, for us just to understand how it is working, I'm still keeping that, but I'm keeping as a comment so that it won't execute. So now why I am doing like that, just I want to show you we also have plus plus. We can also give like this, right? So now execute and see what is the result. Right now execute, debug. Now also the value is 11. So now the question is, what is the difference between num1 plus plus or plus plus num1? So what is the difference? So maybe to show you, so what I'll do in the same statement, right? So in general, when we use plus plus, and if you are assigning this result to some of the number, okay, so let's see now what is the result. Okay, so now also you are seeing 11, right? So if you use plus plus num1, it will increment that value by 1, and it will return whatever the updated value is there, that one, right? Same thing. Okay, so I'm just replacing that num1 with this one. So what will happen while returning, right? I mean, the thing is, technically it will increment that value by 1, and in later statements wherever you see that value reflected 11. But immediately after incrementing, if you want to assign that value, so whatever value it returns is the original number it will return, not the value which is incremented. Okay, so we have 10, right? 10 plus 1, 11. So what it will return? It's return the original value 10. not the updated value. Okay, now if you execute, you see 10, right? So I mean, only a slight difference is what is the value it returns. There is a difference. If you use plus plus after the variable, it's going to return the original value before incrementing. If you use plus plus num1, it is going to return the updated value, right? 11 like that. So that's the slight difference. And same way for minus minus also. Okay, so just understand this, and this is an example of the unary operator. Okay, unary operator means one value, one operator, right? Num1 plus plus. Num1 is one variable, one value, and plus plus is one operator. So that's why we say unary operator. Okay, this is one example. On day to day, we use this. Okay, so now the next thing. So binary operator. What is the example? Right? Maybe same thing. I'm clearing those. Here, let's say num2. I have num3. I have number 4, something like that. So let me assign some default values. Right here, I'm assigning something. Here I'm assigning some values. Right. So so let's say I'm defining one more integer value result. Right. So into that result, what I want to do, number 1 plus number 2 plus number 3 plus number 4. Right. 4 times I'm using plus. So now how exactly it works? So what it will do, first it will take these two. So it's not going to do entire calculation at a time, right? So first it take this num1 is 10 plus 20, 30, right? Now this will be 30. So with that again, 30 plus num3, 5, it will be 35. 35 plus num4, 2, means 37. So finally the result is 37. So like that it will calculate. Okay. So now if you print it, system dot okay, so now if you print it, right, you have to see 37, I think, right? So let's execute. 37 MRC, right? So even though we have many same operator maybe multiple times, so still we say binary means even though we have this much big expression, so it will always deal with two values, one operator, and again result again two values with one operator. Like that it calculates internally. Okay, that's why. So this we can consider as a binary operator. Okay, and also maybe giving minus, right? Now what would be the result, right? So 10 plus 20, 30 minus 5, right? Minus 5 means 25 plus num2 is 2, 27. So do you think it gives the result as 27? Let's,
Maybe 23.
yeah. So let's execute and see. It's giving 27, right? Uh, so now sometimes how it might calculate, right? So we don't know if this 30 minus 5 plus 2, 7 is 23, right? So it's not becoming 23, but 27 we are getting. Sometimes we cannot expect like that, okay? So when we have plus, minus, star, right, for multiplication. So for each programming language, there is a concept called operator precedence, okay? So that means for which operator it gives more priority. Is it for plus or minus or star or slash? Based on that, it works. Okay. So so here I think so what it might be giving priority. I think this one. So 20 minus 5, 15, right? 10 plus 15, 25 plus 2, right? So that's why you are seeing 27. Okay, so I think more priority is for this one. Okay, so always, I mean, let's say I'm here, I'm giving star, right? Now, what do you think is the result? So we know this is the more priority. 20 minus 5, 15. So 15 multiplied, first it will multiply or first it will do addition, right? Again, we need to know. So if you see documentation for Apex operator precedence, you will know. So which is more priority, which is less priority, right? So now let's execute. Okay, so and see what is the result. I'll explain. So now we are saying 20, meaning, so 20 minus 5, 15. 15, right? 15 multiplied with 2 is 30, right? 30 plus 10, 40. But we are seeing 20. So that means, I think first it is doing this 5 multiplied by 2, 10. And after that, 20 minus 10, 10. And after 10 plus 10, 20. Right? I think it's giving more priority to star. But I don't bother. I don't want to always I don't want to remember what is that precedence and all those headaches. So all I want is, so first I want to add these two. Okay, when you give bracket, right? Now whatever in the bracket, that it do calculation separately, right? So now after that, first I want to multiply and I want to add these two minus I want to multiply and return. That is what I want, right? So now using these brackets we can control. So even though you don't know what is that precedence, so we decide as a developer, these two separately should execute, this separately execute. Now 20 you are seeing, right? But if I change my mind, so all we need is as per requirement. So we want to subtract this one, right? And so we want to subtract and add it and multiply. Now you will see a different result, right? 40. Okay, those things are there. Okay, so this is an example of the binary operator. Binary operator means, so we can have many operators, but internally do calculation only with the two values like that. Finally we'll see some result. So this is an example of the binary operator. Okay, already we are using plus, star, slash means for division. All those things you can play with those. Okay, so now the next type of operator, ternary operator. So when we say it's a ternary operator, so maybe same example. Maybe I'm just removing this. So in the result, so all I want to assign, I want to compare number 1, number 2. So whatever the big value out of number 1 and number 2, that I want to assign into result. Right? How we can write? So in the ternary operator, mainly we see 3 parts. Right? One is condition, question mark. If that condition is true, some statement execute. Else, for else we use colon. Right? So when it is false, whatever expression we give, maybe let me say expression, right? False expression that it execute. Okay, so let me give an example. So I want to check number one is greater than number 2. So for that we use relational operator. Okay, so we have greater than, less than, right, not equal to. Those are some relational operators. Okay, here I'm using greater than. So all I am checking is it number 1 is greater than number 2 question mark. Right, this is a condition. That in general relational operators result in either true or false. Okay, as per this condition, 10 greater than 20, I'm checking. Right, we know that not 10 greater than 20 false, right? So but in case if it is true, so what you want to execute? So all I want to return that number 1 if it is true. Else, right, colon after that. So if it is not, this condition is not true, what you want? So whatever that number 2 is there, that one, colon. Right, now what will happen? 10 greater than 20, no, false. So that means it's going to take this one. Number 2 we have 20. So now the final result of this one will be number 2, which is 20. That will be assigning here. Now in the result we will see 20. Right, so that is how it works.
Yeah. Sino, once please explain that result statement.
The result is a variable, right? So now, yeah.
That condition. The condition.
So one more thing, what I'm doing, I'm making this number 1 as 100. Okay. So now this is the condition. 100 greater than 20. Is it true or false? True, right? 100 is
True.
greater than 20 means true, right? So
Mm.
when it true, after question mark, whatever is there, that will be executed. It will return, it will take that value. So now it will, the final result of this expression will be num1, right, which is nothing but 100. In the result, now we have 100, it will print 100. Okay,
Okay.
let me execute. First you are seeing 100, it's like that. So here one, right, ternary means so we are dealing with the 3 different expressions, right? So one condition and 2 operators, right? Total 3 expressions we are dealing. So this one we call as ternary operator. This is an example. Okay, so just these things to understand the syntax while working with the Apex programming. Okay, so just understand. So these are the some of the flavors while working. And also let me explain one more. We have arithmetic assignment operator, right? So what is that arithmetic assignment operator? So let me take one example for that. So for that, maybe same thing. So maybe to make it very simple, removing everything. So all we need, so now all I want is, I'm just printing number 1. So I want to make this number 1 value as the sum of number 1 plus number 2, that is 220 I want, right? So now how we do, right? I want to replace number 1, that variable value, with the result of number 1 plus number 2, that is 120. So for that what we'll do, so num1 into this we want to assign. So what we want to assign, number 1 plus number 2, right? 100 plus 20, 120 I'm assigning. Now you'll see the result as 120, right? You are seeing 120. So now again go back. So now what I want to do, so instead of writing like this, okay, I'm commenting this, right? When you comment, right? So again, let me execute. If you comment, it will skip this. System won't consider that line. Right now, number 1 will be 100 only, right? So even though I have expression that is in that's commented, right? Still 100 you are seeing. Okay, now what I am going to do, equivalent to do this, how we can write, I'll show you. Okay, so we can also write that one like this, right? Internally, the meaning of this one is num1 is equal to num1 plus num2. Instead of writing like this, right, we are just removing. So we are using this. This is one example of the arithmetic assignment, right? So if you see, maybe to avoid confusion, always you can follow this, but we don't know, right? If some other person, if they write like this, we should know, right, what is the meaning of this one, right? That's why. So if you see like this, how we need to understand, num1 is equal to num1 plus num2, like that we have to understand. Okay, so in place of plus you can use minus or star or slash, everything whatever you want, right? I'm giving minus, meaning is num1 minus num2, right? Number 1 will be replaced with num1 minus num2, that means 100 minus 20, 80. Right now if you see, you see the result as 80, right? So same thing. Okay, so you can also give star, means multiplication. 100 multiplied by 20 is 2000, right? Now you'll see the result as 2000. Okay, so I mean you can replace with all those, just I'm showing. So let's see this. This is division, 100 by 20, right? So 5, it's going to return 5, right? So like that, just understand. Okay, so for now I'm just keeping plus. This is one of the example. Okay, the next one, so one of the most important, relational operators. Okay, so mainly we use these relational operators for comparison, right? Just compare. The result after the comparison will be either true or false. That's it. Okay, so for that, to compare for equality, we use double equal to. Okay, so single equal to means it is for assignment, right? Already we use it. But in the code, if you see double equal to, meaning, so they are trying to compare. They are not going to assign. They are trying to compare. That time we use double equal to. Okay, just understand. So double equal to, so less than equal to, greater than equal to, not equal to. Not equal to, you can also either like this you can use, or like this you can use. Both represent not equal to. So those are the some of the relational operators. So maybe to understand. Okay, so here what I'm going to do, we have these two, number 1, number 2, these are the values, right? So just to show you, right, I'm using double equal to. I'm going to use all those operators and show you how it is going to work, right? So maybe here I'm going to use not equal to. So same not equal to, we also either we can follow like this or like this. Okay, so one is greater than equal to, right? Maybe less than equal to. Okay, so now let's see what is the result. Okay, before we execute, so first identify from our side what is the result. So maybe in a comment I want to keep that result whatever we are analyzing. Okay, so 100 is equal to num2 is 20. Is both are same? All right. So that means it should return false, right? So now it's checking 100 not equal to 20. Correct. Both are not equal, right? It's true. This is also same thing, the different way of representing. So now num1 means 100 is greater than 20. Yes, right? True. So greater than equal to 20. Yes, right? So now 100 is less than 20. No, right? False. So less than equal to 20, same thing, false. Right? In the result, all we need to see this one, false, 4 trues, and after that 2 false. Right? Let's see. Execute. Right? False. 4 times true, false, false, same thing. Right? So this is the way all these relational operators we use. The result of the relational operators will be either true or false. Yeah, just understand. Okay, this is an example. Any questions on this? Now let's understand logical operator, right? So we have a dependency between relational operator and logical operator, right? So logical operator, when we use, when we have multiple conditions, maybe in this example only one condition, right? Like that I have 10 conditions. When you have 10 conditions, do you want all the conditions that should be satisfied? Right? Condition 1 and condition 2 and condition 3, all 10 conditions should satisfy, then only it should become true. Or any one of that condition is true, that is okay. So those things we deal using logical operators. Okay, so for that here we have AND, OR, NOT. But the thing is, in Apex code, AND directly we don't use. Okay, end means like this we use. Okay, R means we use two pipe symbols. Not means we use exclamatory. Okay, like that. Okay, so now let me show you by using these logical operators also. Okay, so maybe in this, so what I'm going to do, so let me remove all this. So let's take two conditions. Number 1 is greater than number 2, and I want end condition. End I'm checking number 2 is greater than 50 or not, right? I'm taking end, means this condition should be true and this condition also should be true. Then only the final result will be true. Right now we know 100 greater than 20. Correct, true, right? So let's analyze here. So first part will be true, and the second part 20 is greater than 50, false, right? Now the final result will be false, right? So end means both should be true, then only it will be true. Now you see as false. Okay, so in the same way, maybe same condition I'm giving with R, right? R means any one of the condition is true, it will become true. Now we know first condition is true, second is false. Okay, final result will be true, right? R means any one of the conditions should be true. Okay, now in the same way, not, right? Maybe here I'm checking number 1 greater than number 2, so 100 greater than 20, true. But I want reverse. So that time what we do, so for that expression I'm giving this. Right now we know the result is true, right? So but for that when you apply not, that means this will become reverse. So that means as per this condition, this expression will be valid if it is true. Sorry, uh, if it is true, the final result becomes as false. Yeah, like that it works. So let's see, all we need to see false, true, false. Let's see that is coming or not. Okay, I'm just executing. Now false, true, false is working, right? So now, right, if you change this to 10, again situation becomes different, right? So now here I'm changing this. Okay, so 10 greater than 20, false, right? Both are false, means false. So if both are false, again this becomes false, right? And this is false. False means final result, so become true. You will see false, false, true, right? Let's execute and see, right? So now I'm making this 200, right? Now as per this, what happens? 10 greater than 200 false, number 2 greater than 50, right, which is 200 greater than 50 true, but still the result is false only because one of the condition is false. Again, this one true, this will be true. Again, this one still 10 greater than 20 false. So same, now you see false, true, true as a result, right? Different combinations, how it works. Okay, so we should know this basic. So then keep on, maybe I'm only playing with the two conditions. It can be like this one and this one, or one more condition, right? There can be 10 conditions, but as soon as you know this concept, you can work with those. Okay, the final example, so let's make this one as 1000 greater than 200, correct, true, right? And the num2 is 200 greater than 50, true. Since both are true, the final result is true, right? Here also both are true, final result is true. So here true means it will be false. We'll see true, true, false. Let's see. Okay, like that. So using relational operators, using logical operator. So all these scenarios while developing a program, so we make use of all these relational operators, logical operators, arithmetic operators, unary operators. So as soon as we know the syntax, so while working, so it will be easy for us. Okay, that's about so how we do calculations most of the times. Okay, so before we deal with the next topic, conditional statements. So any questions, anyone so far? So any questions? Okay. Now the next concept, conditional statement. So the purpose of the conditional statement is when we write the code, right? Let's say I have written 10 statements in a program. Sometimes some statements I want to execute only if particular condition meets, then only I want to execute. If that condition is not meeting, I don't want to execute. Okay, so conditionally we have to control which statement should be executed, which statement should not be executed. So that time we use these conditional statements mostly. So we use if for the conditional statements. We also have switch when different concepts, but 90% most of the times we use if. Okay, so first we focus on this one. The other switch when those things we'll see somewhere later. Okay, to avoid confusion. So now in if also there are different flavors, right? We'll say simple if. So when we say simple if, right, we have if else. So when we say if else, we say if else if, when we say like that, right? So again we say nested if, we say if series. Okay, these are different flavors. So when exactly we use this, I'll show you. Okay, so let's deal with the simple if. Okay, so for that, so if you go back here, so let's say here we are printing, right? So I want to print all these things only if the number one value is greater than 2000, then only I want to print, otherwise I don't want to print. So now we use a simple if condition. If right? I am checking. So number 1 is greater than 2000 or not, right? Now this is the if condition, right? Inside the if, so if you want to keep multiple statements, so this is a block. Okay, so floor brackets starting ending, in between we keep multiple statements, right? This part, so I'm keeping inside. So maybe for alignment, right? Now this is not aligning, so I told you, right? So we follow some indentation. So especially whenever we use floor brackets like this, that means one block of code. So instead of starting from beginning like that, right? Inside each block, inside this floor bracket, those statements while writing, always we give one tab space. Okay, so that's the indentation, that's the format all developers follow. Okay, so if you also follow that, it's good. So especially when we have many lines and the alignment, let's say if I have 10 lines, 10 times I need to keep here and press tab like that. If you don't want to do, so you select all this code and we have a shortcut shift. Okay, again, that will work based on the editor where you work. Okay, so in the developer console, when you have like this, if you want to align the code, hold shift and press tab. Automatically, right? So Salesforce will take care of aligning this code. Okay, so now automatically this is aligned. Okay, now let's execute. Now what would be the result? We don't see anything printing. That's what should happen, because this condition is not meeting. Num1 is 1000 greater than 2000 false. You don't see anything printing, right? When you click on debug only, nothing is printing. So this is a simple if, right? So when we use if else, so when we have if and if nothing is satisfied, I mean if nothing is executed, alternatively you want to execute. If the condition is not meeting, in else scenario, something you want to execute, at that time we use else and like this. So here I'm saying, okay, something like this I'm printing, right? Now what will be printed? This will be printed, right? Now execute. See, this is else part, right? Now if I make it 10,000, what will happen? 10,000 greater than 2,000, correct? This will be printed, but you don't see it is entering here, right? Only if this is not meeting, then only it will enter into this block, right? So now if you execute, you'll see all that it is printing. Okay, that is if else. Okay, so the other flavors, since we don't have time, tomorrow we'll discuss about those, right? So mainly we call this as else if. So nested if and all those things, followed by these looping statements and other things. Okay, so before ending today, so any questions, anyone? So any confusion on understanding? Okay, these are the basics. And also I'm not expecting anyone to know already some programming language, right? So we are starting from very basics. In case if you are not understanding, any one of you, just let me know. So anyone facing problem on not understanding, especially if you are not from maybe IT background, not computer science background. Okay, so I'm assuming that everyone are understanding. So before ending today, so one thing, um, so daily recordings even for these demos. Okay, so I'm attaching to that meeting. Let me